took me by complete surprise when he agreed for divorce and took brutal revenge for my cheating. I thought I would be saving myself and throwing my husband under the bus by asking for a divorce, but he ended up being one step ahead of me and backstabbed me without thinking twice. Hi, my name is Angela, and I have been married for 3 years now. I am into making food for various events, and I have been doing it for a while now. I am 28 years old. The name of my husband is Phil. Phil is 30 years old, and he is into real estate services. Phil and I met through a mutual friend. Our friend at that time said that she liked the kind of life I was living, and she wanted me to at least get to meet her friend Phil. I didn't want to think too much into it at that time, and so I brushed it off because I had just left a relationship and I didn't want to go into another one. But somehow our mutual friend convinced me, and I told her that she could give my number out to him. I met Phil for the first time, and I was not impressed because he tried a lot to impress me, and I wasn't really buying into it, and so I ignored him. So our first meeting was a little awkward. I didn't really understand who Phil was at first, but as time went on, we began to understand and relate with each other. We dated for a while and everything got heated up within us. Our relationship was moving in the right direction. I was so happy because I told myself that there was a time that I wanted nothing to do with him. But I thanked God that I was able to come out of my shell and let Phil love me. Phil was a person that had no problem at all. He was treating me right, and of course he had his flaws, which I ignored. One of his flaws was the fact that he could go mute on certain things, and he could just keep it to himself. I didn't like that I didn't want to have that in my life. I wanted someone who could communicate with me regardless. But I ignored that red flag, and we continued dating. We dated for a while. There were days that it was all fun, and there were days that we had issues. In all, I was in love with Phil, and I was ready to take chances with him. The fact that I ignored those red flags was the beginning of all my problems. I told my family about Phil. My family as in my mother. My mother was my everything. She had been supporting me for as long as I can remember. She supported my dreams, so when I told her about Phil, she was so happy and she supported me all the way. When she met him, she was happy, and a few weeks later, Phil asked me to marry him, and I was skeptical about it for a while. I felt like we hadn't known each other for that long, and he was talking about marriage. I took time to myself to think about the whole thing, and I was happy that Phil understood where I was coming from, and he gave me space to think about it. I was grateful for everything. I told my friend Patricia, and she advised me to go with my guts and do what made me happy. After some weeks, I could see that me holding back my answers was taking a toll on Phil. I accepted his proposal, and we got engaged. We planned our wedding, and it was everything and more. I got to meet Phil's family, and they literally welcomed me into their home. After the wedding, we planned to spend time in our new home. Phil had told me to move in with him, and I wasn't comfortable with that, and so I told him that it was okay for us to just buy a house together. He agreed, and we did. It was a lot at first because I had to move things around and put things in order. It was a lot, and I was helped by Phil. He made sure that I stressed less, and I was grateful. So a few months after we were settled, we went back to our respective fields. My business was going well, and I was grateful. Every morning, Phil and I had our routine, and we were very comfortable with it. My work can be very stressful, but I still had to make time for my husband and my home. Married life can be really demanding. Phil was the type that he wanted everything to be traditional. I made food, did laundry, and so on. At first, I was okay with it, as it became too much for me when Phil was always feeling reluctant to do basic things for himself, like picking up his plates after eating or ironing his clothes. I was not able to juggle everything together, and the day I told him about how tired I was, I called me lazy. It was a huge fight that day, but I tried my best to avoid the temptation of quarreling. It was our first fight as a married couple. It was bad, but we found our way back to each other. We made sure that we resolved everything. He apologized to me, and I forgave him. He did everything right by apologizing, and I decided to forget everything. As time went on, we made plans to communicate more and do the needful. Days passed, and he made a great effort to apologize. Weeks later, we made plans to go see my mother and spend a few days with her. I had to literally drag Phil with me to go see her. My mother was really fond of Phil, so they went along just fine. During the visit to the town that I grew up in, I got the biggest shock of my life. My high school crush Matthew was also in town. I got to know that he came back from the military and he was finally down. That was the exact reason why we broke up in the first place. He wanted to go into the military, and I told him that I couldn't wait, and so we broke up. It had to be the most painful thing to happen to me in my life because I loved him, and I didn't want to lose him, but I couldn't stop him from living, and so we had to break up. When I heard that he was in town, I didn't know how to feel because it brought back a lot of memories that I had locked away. I told my mother that we had to leave after a few days because I didn't want to see Matthew, and most importantly, I didn't want him and Phil to run into each other, but that didn't happen because we did see each other and we just said hello. But Matthew wanted to talk to me, which I brushed off because I was with Phil. I had to beg Matthew that I was going to see him later if he didn't cause a scene in the presence of my husband. He agreed, and he left. I was happy that Phil didn't see us, or else he could be suspicious. Of course, after that day I tried to see Matthew, but there was no chance for me, and so I created time one day that Phil went out with my mother. I met up with Matthew, and he started talking about how he had missed Aunt E and how he wanted to have me back in his life. I had to tell him that it was not going to be possible since I was married, but he explained to me that he knew that I still had feelings for him, and we should explore it and see where it will go. I knew in my heart that I hadn't really forgotten about my first love, which was Matthew, but there was nothing I could do now. I was married, and I loved my husband. I told him that he should just leave me alone, and I left. But he didn't listen to me. Matthew was very persistent. He could show up at random places, and I used to pray that Phil didn't see us because he could be angry. Matthew somehow got my phone number after we left town, and he started to disturb me. It was not that I wasn't still in love with him, it's just that I didn't want to leave my husband and start all over with someone I wasn't sure he was going to stay with. Matthew left me once. What was the guarantee that he wasn't going to leave again when things got rough? After we got back, I went straight to my work because I had a lot of events planned and Phil had different business to attend to, so he was out of town. After work, I could go get drinks with Patricia. I think she was more fun than me. She had everything going on for her. She was single and just living her life. I told her about the problem I was in with Matthew, and she advised me to just have a seat down with him and iron things out in order for the both of us to be able to move on from everything. I kind of saw where she was coming from, and I agreed. She also advised me to be very careful in order not to jeopardize my marriage to Phil. I spoke to Matthew about the whole thing, and he said he was only going to have a conversation with me if I came to his hotel room. I didn't think too much into it, and so I went to his hotel room because I just wanted everything to be done with and for me to move on with my life. And that also entails burning the feelings I had for him. I was done. I needed to concentrate on my marriage. I got to the hotel room and we started talking. We talked for a while and Matthew and I kissed. It wasn't planned. I started to leave when things got heated up between us. We eventually had sex, and I had missed feelings at first because I had just cheated on my husband, and I hoped he didn't find out. What I did went against everything I stood for. In my mind, I had just committed a great sin. But Matthew told me that I shouldn't beat myself up because of something I had no control over. He was able to brainwash me to think that I hadn't done anything wrong. After that day, Matthew and I kept him in touch. We could talk every day when I am at work. I made it so that Phil will not see me talking on the phone. But after that day, everything began to change between me and Phil. He became distant. He barely talked to me. It was as if he had found out that I'd cheated on him. I asked him what the matter was, and he told me that it was nothing, and he was just under the weather. I brushed it off and went on with my life. I kept going out with Matthew, and I was also having sex with him, which I was not proud of, but there was nothing I could do. I made sure that we kept our relationship from the public eye so that people would not see us. My relationship with Phil felt so new and fresh, it was as if we hadn't separated in the first place, everything was moving smoothly. I didn't know what was wrong with Phil at some point, because he became harsh and angry with me all the time. I knew that there was no way for him to know that I had been cheating, so I was confused that he was so distant from me. I had told my friend Patricia about Phil's latest attitude towards me, and she advised me that we should try and see a therapist. I left out the part where I cheated on my husband because I didn't want to be judged. And I also knew that she could drag me for cheating, but there was nothing I could do. I don't even know if it was love that I still had for Matthew, or if it was just infatuation, but there was something there. Since what Phil was going through was bigger than me, apparently, I told him that maybe it was wise for us to see a therapist. He refused, and he assured me that everything was okay between us. He told me that he was just going through a tough time at work, and there was nothing to worry about. My affair with Matthew went on for months, and I still believed that nobody saw us together. But everything began to change for the worst when Matthew started to disappear on me. We could stay for weeks without seeing each other, and I was missing him. The attention I gave to Matthew, I didn't give it to my own husband, and so his Matthew absence for a while was affecting me. I even stopped caring for Phil at a time, because then I hardly see him at home. He was always busy. It was unlike him. and I became worried. Phil and I were living in the same house, but we were far apart, and Matthew was ignoring me. It was as if I had no one again. So I decided to find out the reason why Matthew had been ignoring me. It was then that I got the biggest shock of my life. Matthew had told me that everything we had was fun, but he didn't think that he wanted to move on with me. I told him that I don't want to move on with him either, that I was married. I was only interested in having fun and getting the attention that he was giving me, which I wasn't receiving from my husband. He told me that I was a cheat, that he didn't want to have me in his life, that people like me who could confidently cheat on their husbands could do a lot worse. I became confused because what had caused this kind of mood shift in Matthew. I thought he loved me, and I thought he was going to fight for me, but I was wrong. He just used me for my body and nothing else. I was so angry, and there were days I cried myself to sleep. I thought that Matthew could not break my heart for the second time, but he did. He insulted me and degraded me without any form of remorse. I wished I never met someone as bad as Matthew. But I told myself that I wasn't going to let that bring me down. I made sure to move on with my life and at least try and work on my marriage in order to take my mind off a lot of things. Me thinking too much then was taking a toll on me. I told myself I needed something that would distract me, and I got the idea from my mother when she called and told me that she was still accepting grandchildren, and it clicked to me that Phil and I hadn't really talked about having children, and so I told myself that we were going to discuss it. But when I finally got hold of Phil, he told me that he wasn't ready to have children with me, and he didn't give me a valid reason. He walked out on me and he brushed the conversation aside, but I knew that I wasn't done. After that day, Phil began to avoid me. He no longer ate his food. He hardly came home. It was as if I was living alone without a husband, but I wanted children from Phil, and I don't know why he didn't want children. We are married and we love each other. Why was he avoiding this topic? I explained my plight to my friend Patricia, and she told me to approach it calmly, but there was nothing to be calm about. We had the finances, and so what was holding my husband back? I knew that something was really wrong because Phil had changed. He was so distant from me. When we first got married, we were also so lovely, but now he was another thing. I kept asking myself, where did I go wrong? There was no possible way for him to know that I had cheated. He was not always around, and most times that Matthew and I went out, we were always so careful. I told myself that I was going to ask him what the problem was, but I knew that I was going to do it with a lot of sense. But my patience was going thin. When I spoke to Phil again, things really got heated up between us. We exchanged words that we were both not proud of. I told him that I was tired of being treated as furniture in my husband's house, and I told him that I want a divorce, and he told me that it was fine, and he left the house. The very next day I received paper, and it was my husband divorcing me. I told myself that it was an expensive joke because the problem we had wasn't that serious for him to give me divorce papers. What did I do? Just like that. We had a little quarrel, and I wasn't expecting to be divorced the next day. We are married. Married couples always have issues. What is happening? Where did I go wrong? I even tried to get through to Phil, but it was possible it was as if he disappeared. I told my mother and Patricia what I was going through, and they came to comfort me. I knew that there had to be more to all that happened because I didn't do anything bad. Maybe Phil already had a woman he wanted to marry and he wanted to discard me, but I made sure that I was not going to allow him to be happy in that relationship. How was he going to be enjoying his life and leave me hanging? I told myself that I was going to drag this divorce. He had no right to divorce me on baseless issues. We were asked to report to court, and I did. In all the processings, I made sure to talk about how baseless the divorce was, that the court was just wasting their time. But when Phil was asked what was the reason for the divorce, he said it was because I cheated on him. I was so shocked how it was possible for him to know that I cheated on him. There was no possible way. I was careful. I left the court that day, and the news had spread all over that I had cheated on my husband. My mother called me to tell me how disappointed she was in me. But I knew that Phil had no proof that he cheated on him, and I was going to prove that tomorrow that I didn't cheat, and he was just claiming what he wasn't sure of. My mother was making things difficult for me by blaming me and telling me that I should have done better, but I told her that I didn't cheat on my husband, but she didn't believe me at all. So I told myself that I will just avoid her so I can be sane. I assured myself that there was no way that anybody could know that I cheated. The next day in court, Phil was able to prove that I had cheated on him with pictures of me and Matthew together. I was so shocked how he got the pictures, it was all new to me. I thought I was very careful about what happened, how it happened. I was disgraced in court that day, I was looked down upon as the woman who cheated on her husband, and the fact that there were pictures to back it off. I wished I wasn't disgraced like that. I wished my husband didn't take this cruel revenge of taking pictures of me with Matthew. I was so ashamed of myself. After what had transpired in court, I advised myself that all this wasn't worth it. I should just divorce Phil and let everything go. I was tired. And the fact that Phil still went ahead to release the pictures to my family in order for him to prove a point killed me so much. And that I thought there was love between us before we got married. I don't know why Phil could do this to me. People in the community started to avoid me. Some people called me all different types of names. My friends stopped picking my calls. I was just all alone in the house. I was asked to pay some amount of money to Phil, and I did. Even if it was with me paying through my nose, I still paid. Everything I ever held dearly was taken from me. I tried my best to try and sit down with Phil in order to explain things to him, why, and cheated. And all but he ignored me. I begged him to listen to me, but Phil was hell-bent on making my life miserable. Few weeks later, the house, where we built our home, was forcefully taken away from me, and I didn't know how I was going to survive. I couldn't go and stay with my mother because she made it clear that she wants nothing to do with me since I disagreed with her. But I was bent on making things right. When I went to my mother's house and I saw Phil there, I was happy because I knew that it was an opportunity for me to apologize to him and maybe beg him to take me back. But I received the shock of my life when my mother asked me to leave because she wasn't ready to see my face. But I didn't have anywhere to go. I was being rejected from entering my own home, and my own mother didn't want to have anything to do with me. Phil had turned the whole thing against me. How he managed to do it, I don't know. I was able to pack my things to a small hotel, and I stayed there. There were days I cried my eyes out, and there were days that I had nothing to do but to just sit and regret making the wrong decision. Update. Right now, I am just trying to put my life in order. I was able to see a small job that I have been managing for a while now. I regret my decisions. I wished I never saw Matthew to begin with. He came and he scattered my life. He scattered my marriage. Phil was a wonderful man, and I used his gentleness to my own gain, and at last I got burned. My mother was coming around a little, but at least it was a step in the right direction. I told myself that I needed to make the right choices, and I was going to apologize to and forgive myself for doing everything I did.
I am Sophia, 31, and have been married to Robin, 38, for the past 7 years. This is a post that I am writing to lessen the burden of a secret that I have been carrying for more than 2 years. I feel like it is high time I share my secret to free myself of the burden and feel a little better about it. I am not writing it for people to judge me or give me advice. This post is solely for the purpose of releasing my anxiety and nothing more. I would appreciate it if people would be respectful about the things I would be sharing below. I hope that by sharing my secret, I can find some solace and perhaps even inspire others who may be going through a similar experience. It takes a lot of courage to open up about something so personal, but I believe it's necessary for my own well-being. Please understand that this is a vulnerable moment for me, and your understanding and support would mean the world to me. Robin had been my first work crush. By work crush, I mean that he was a guy I had a crush on when I was at work. I used to work at a cafe as a barista where Robin would come every morning to grab a cup of coffee. My morning would always begin with him placing his order with me, and my day would be made. It had become like a ritual of mine from Monday to Friday to wait for him to walk in and look for me. I was 23 at that time and was taking a break before I started my master's. I would soon be starting college and would have to leave my job, so I took a bold step so that I don't regret not taking action about my crush. So, a week before my last day at the cafe, I slipped in my number along with a napkin and prayed that he would notice. There was absolutely nothing for the next 2 days. He came in as usual and ordered his coffee, acting as if nothing happened. I was about to give up thinking maybe he threw the napkin without even noticing my number. I encouraged myself that at least I tried to make a step. The third day, he came in as usual for his coffee and asked what time I got off work. Oh my God, my world stopped. I could not believe what I was hearing. It felt like a dream come true. I quickly replied, trying to hide my excitement, and told him my shift ended at 6 p.m. We exchanged smiles and he left the cafe, leaving me eagerly anticipating the end of my shift. The rest of the day seemed to drag on, but finally, it was 6 p.m. and I couldn't wait to see what would happen next. He took me out for dinner that day, and there were instant sparks between us. I told him about my plans of starting my master's soon. He was impressed by my clarity in life. I found him to be a responsible, loyal, and caring person in the 3 hours that we spent with each other that day. He would make time on weekends to come and meet me after my classes, and we would go on dates. 3 months of dating made me realize that this was the man I would want to spend the rest of my life with. And knowing Robin very well, I knew that he would never take the first step. I would have to leave hints for him to know that we were ready to take it forward. I would drop subtle hints about our future together, such as mentioning my dreams and goals, hoping that Robin would catch on and express his own desires. Despite my efforts, Robin remained hesitant, perhaps unsure of how to approach the topic. However, deep down, I knew that our connection was strong enough to withstand any obstacles we may face in taking our relationship to the next level. I understood that I would be the one that would have to pop the question. My master's classes had started, and we moved in together to a house which was close to my college, so that I could save time on travel. We were enjoying living together. Robin would make me breakfast every day before I left for my classes. It was almost 2 months since we moved in, but there was no sign of Robin indicating to take the next step in our relationship. I decided to change the norm and proposed to Robin on his birthday, which was coming soon. I crafted a handmade card for him and wrote a small and beautiful poem on it to help me with my proposal. On his birthday, we went out with friends, danced, got drunk, and finally came home. While he was changing, I slowly slipped the card on his side of the bed and waited for him to notice it and waited for his reaction. He picked up the card, and as he started reading it, I bent down on one knee and asked him if he would marry me. He was quite touched by my actions and told me that I took the initiative as usual, as he was meaning to propose to me once he would get promoted. We both started laughing, because that is how our relationship had always been. I was always the one to take the lead and not waiting for him to make the move. We had a very intimate wedding with only close friends and family. We decided to postpone our honeymoon till my semester break so that I don't miss too many classes. Robin convinced me to quit my part-time job as he was soon to be promoted and could afford the expenses for the both of us. I was very happy and grateful that I found Robin, who was so caring and understanding towards all my needs. He was the best thing that ever happened to me. As months passed, we both got busy with our lives. I was working on my project, and Robin, after getting promoted, was handling a team which I'm sure was very stressful. I could see that we were getting distant, and our schedules did not allow us to spend a lot of time with each other. My weekends were mostly consumed by house chores, and whatever time I got, I had to sit down and work on my pending projects. Robin had always been supportive and understanding towards my busy schedule, and never once complained about me not giving him enough time. Despite our busy schedules, we made sure to cherish the moments we did have together. We would plan small date nights or take short walks in the evenings to reconnect and catch up on each other's lives. Despite the distance that grew between us, our love and understanding for one another remained strong. Despite our busy lives, we still made an effort to communicate and check in with each other regularly. We would send each other thoughtful messages or plan small surprises to show our love and appreciation. Despite the distance, our emotional connection remained strong, and we both understood the importance of maintaining a healthy balance between work and marriage. It was my semester break, and as we had decided, we went on our honeymoon. It was the first time in 6 months that Robin and I would be spending a whole week with each other, without any external interference like college work or family. I wanted it to be the best week of our lives, so I made sure that I carry all my cute little dresses to impress Robin. We did a lot of sightseeing during the day, but I was more looking forward to the nights. To my disappointment, Robin was not that great in bed. I have had a lot of experience in the past and knew what satisfaction feels like. I reassured myself that sex was just a part of marriage, and Robin was still great at many other things. I should not let just one factor affect what I think about Robin in our marriage. I was sure that if we had sex regularly, it would only get better and our sex life would improve. The entire week went by, but with me being disappointed every single night. I told myself to give some more time to Robin to get better, and if not, maybe talk to him about what he could do to make it better. I reminded myself that a strong emotional connection and companionship were also crucial aspects of a successful marriage. However, as the days passed, my disappointment continued to grow, making me consider discussing the issue with Robin and exploring potential solutions together. I believe that open communication and mutual understanding would be the key in finding a resolution that could enhance our overall satisfaction in our relationship. It had been 2 years of unsatisfactory sex with Robin. My frustration and thirst for a good, long, and satisfying sex kept building. I was at the end of my course, and I would soon be receiving my master's degree. Though I could post about my prolific academic achievements, I could not do the same about my marriage. I had hoped that in the past 2 years, Robin would have learnt something and improved his skills. But I just kept noticing that his level had kept declining over time. I was tired of self-pleasure and wanted more than that. I decided to have an open and honest conversation with Robin about my needs and desires. I expressed my concerns and explained that I needed a deeper connection and fulfillment in our intimate moments. I hoped that by communicating my feelings, we could work together to find a solution that would bring back the passion and satisfaction we both desired. It was already 2 months that I had completed my master's and had started staying at home and was dying of boredom. One day at the grocery store, I saw someone giving out flyers about a new startup, and the company was looking for immediate joiners. I got one of the flyers home and discussed it with Robin if I could join this company. I know that since it was the startup, the pay would not be that great, but I was not looking to join for the money, but to save myself from the boredom at home. After discussing the potential opportunities and challenges, we both agreed that it could be a great opportunity for me to break free from the monotony of staying at home. With a renewed sense of purpose, I eagerly filled out the application form and submitted it, hoping for a positive response from the company. Despite the low pay, I was eager to break free from the monotony of staying at home and grab this exciting opportunity for personal growth. The sex life continued to be dull for me despite Robin's efforts to satisfy me. I would always remain unsatisfied and tried to act as if Robin was improving, and I had no complaints about sex. But to be honest, I was far from happy with my sex life. I started focusing on my job, which was the new and exciting thing in my life right now. I started working at my new job, which currently had only 3 people in the entire office. There was the owner, Ivan, who was young and determined to create history. Then there was a marketing head, Simon, and me. It was all new to me, and I was excited to finally come out of my boring routine and try something new. Since it was a startup, there were no fixed working hours, and we could be flexible with our schedules. One rainy day, it was just Ivan and me in the office. Simon was sick and would not be able to make it. I was all wet by the time I reached the office, as I had walked like always from home. When I reached the office, I saw Ivan making a cup of coffee, and on seeing me, he made a cup for me as well. I smiled at him, and we both started drinking the coffee. My top was a little wet, along with my hair. I tried to dry them while having my coffee. I did not realize that my top was transparent and my bra was visible. Ivan told me that I might want to go to the restroom to fix my clothes. It was then that I noticed how disheveled I looked. I was embarrassed to face Ivan after that, but he assured me that it was perfectly all right and not to worry about it. We started working, and then I bumped into Ivan at the fax machine and almost fell before he caught me. We were in a very awkward position, and our faces were too close to each other. Ivan kissed me suddenly, and I did not stop him. It had been so long that I kissed so passionately. It slowly turned into a make-out session right there in the fax room. When we realized what we were doing, Ivan gave me a sheepish smile and got up. My blouse was unbuttoned, and his shirt was on the floor. We both composed ourselves and tried to tidy ourselves. I felt a rush of emotions that I hadn't in a really long time. The way Ivan kissed me was extraordinary. I forgot everything else and wished him to continue kissing me. We went back to the main office, but the sexual tension was irresistible. Every time we came near each other, I could sense that both our hearts were beating faster. We tried to keep our distance and avoid each other's gaze so that we could focus on work. With just me and Ivan as the only people in the office, it made it even more difficult. I went to the washroom to divert my attention. I could not help but smile at myself for the passionate encounter that we had. I had never felt so sexually aroused in a long time. I knew what I was thinking was wrong, but I could not stop myself from thinking what it would be like to have sex with Ivan. He was a terrific kisser, so I wondered how good he would be in bed. I cursed myself to be thinking this way and went back to my seat. I could see Ivan having his own struggles to control his emotions. He asked me to leave early. Probably that was the best way to avoid a disaster. I went home, changed, but couldn't stop myself from thinking about what happened between me and Ivan. I was trying to keep myself busy with house chores, but I just could not get the feelings of arousal out of my head. Robin came home and we made dinner together. I could not stop myself from thinking, what if Ivan would be here in Robin's place? I cursed myself from having such wild thoughts and was grateful for the life I had right now. The next day, I went to work as usual. Ivan was at his desk working on something. He told me that Simon was still sick and would not be coming in for a few days. This made me happy on the inside that I would get to spend the entire time alone with Ivan, and who knows, things may go the way I wanted them to. I came prepared today, looking extra beautiful and putting on a sexier top. I could see that Ivan was checking me out, so I acted as if I was reading something very intently. I walked up to Ivan after a while and asked him if he could help me with shortlisting a few ideas. We both sat close to each other, and I could see Ivan having a difficult time focusing on work. I was having fun as I was able to do this to someone after a long time, and it was as good as always. We were looking at a page when our hands were too close, and I held his hand as a sign of approval that I did not mind what happened yesterday and would not mind if it happened today too. I looked at Ivan and smiled, still holding his hand. I guess this was the cue Ivan was waiting for. He pulled me towards him. We made out on the work table, and this time it was a complete sexual pleasure ride. I felt great after having sex. I don't remember the last time I had sex and was fully satisfied by it. It felt great, and I finally enjoyed myself to the fullest. We both lied down naked for a while and then we got dressed. We did not even address if this was love or lust, as we both clearly knew it was all sexual. I loved Robin with the depths of my heart, but there was no denying that Ivan was the one who could help me satisfy my sexual needs. I was torn between morals and self-satisfaction. I couldn't help but question my own values and Desiree's, torn between the emotional connection I had with Robin and the undeniable physical satisfaction I found with Ivan. It was a constant battle within me, trying to reconcile my moral compass with my need for self-fulfillment. Every day I would tell myself that I would stay away from Ivan, keep my distance, and be professional, but failed each day. We would take advantage of Simon being either not coming into work or going out for some products and make out. It had become second nature to us to pounce on every opportunity we got to spend time with each other. I would go home and feel guilty for my actions, as Robin had always been good to me. He understood me so well and accommodated all of my wishes, and never complained about anything else and always cared for my happiness. This went on for about 2 weeks, and after that, I decided to stop fooling around with Ivan. It was not Robin's fault, and it would be horrible of me to do all this behind his back, especially when he had always been good to me. I decided to talk to Ivan and make it clear that whatever happened in the past should not be happening in the present. Ivan was understanding and said that he respected my decision and would not cross the line until I did. I raised my eyebrows and decided to let it go, thinking that it was his ego talking. I felt very good about my decision, that I did the right thing. I went home feeling light and wanted to make it special. I cooked and decorated our house as a surprise for Robin. I told Robin that I wanted to have sex, and we did, but it lasted for less than a minute. Robin was done, and he said he was tired and sleepy. In the next 10 minutes, he was already snoring. I was so happy and so sure in the morning about my decision to distance myself from Ivan, but now I was regretting it. I couldn't help but feel a sense of disappointment and frustration as I lay awake next to Robin, questioning if I had made the right choice. The conflicting emotions left me longing for the connection and intimacy I shared with Ivan. The next day, I went to work and tried my best to get Ivan's attention. He kept ignoring me and continued his conversation with Simon. Simon then said that he might have to go out to get a few things, and that raised my hopes to get some alone time with Ivan where I could talk to him. To my surprise, Ivan decided to join Simon and help him with shortlisting the items that were required. I was left alone in the office, wondering if Ivan was doing this on purpose, or did he really want to keep his distance from me? Simon and Ivan came back after 2 hours and were busy organizing the stuff that they bought. Ivan asked me to leave for the day, as there was nothing much to do. I was shocked by his cold treatment, but nonetheless, I did not let it show on my face. I went home and kept thinking of the last 3 weeks when I had amazing sex with Ivan. The more I thought about it, the more I regretted my decision to keep my distance from Ivan. I then thought maybe I could just keep my marriage and my sex life different and not mix them. Ivan was just a fling who gave me the sexual satisfaction I longed for, but Robin was my anchor. He made sure that I am well taken care of, apart from the sex, of course. I had plenty of free time to come up with a plan where both these lives stayed apart and never overlapped with each other. I convinced myself that I could do it since Robin had a very tight schedule every day, and that hardly changed ever. And I had no fixed work hours. Robin would always text me where he was and what he was doing. It would not be difficult for me to continue my affair with Ivan without Robin knowing anything about it. I reasoned that I wasn't doing anything wrong, but just trying to fulfill my desires and keep me sexually happy. This was the only way I could go about it without feeling guilty. The next day, as I was getting ready for work, Ivan sent me a text asking me to take a leave as there was nothing much to do anyway. I was angry and knew that this was definitely Ivan's way of getting back at me for cutting him off. I told him that I was anyway going to take a sick leave as I wasn't keeping well. There was just a 2-word reply from him asking me to take care, which angered me even more. I needed to do something to get Ivan's attention back. After 2 hours, I messaged Ivan that I was very sick and wanted to go to the hospital, but Robin was stuck in a meeting and could not make it for at least the next 2 hours. Since Ivan was the only one I could think of who is close to our house, I asked him if it wasn't too much of a bother. Could he take me to the hospital? I acted very formal and made it look like I would not mind even if he did not come. It took him a while to reply that he would not have a problem and that he can come. I sent him the address and asked him to come directly inside, as I would leave the door open for him. He came after 20 minutes, and I was lying on the couch in a blanket, acting as if I was in severe pain. He came and I told him to help me get up. I slowly removed my blanket, revealing the nightdress that I had been wearing. He looked at my clothes in shock, and then looked at my face to see if I was really sick. I gave him a naughty smile and asked him if he liked what he saw. He tried to act stiff and said that he was only here because he thought that I was in pain. I told him that I was because he was avoiding me. I told him that I was sorry for pushing him away, and I would do anything to make it up to him. He could see the flirtatious expression on my face, in my tiny dress, seducing him. He asked me if I missed him, and I told him I missed his body more than him. He kissed me, and we started making out on the couch. We did get a call from Simon, and Yvonne told him that he would drop me home from the hospital and get back to work. We made passionate love to each other. Ivan left after 2 hours, and I cleaned the house, removing any traces of our romance from the house before Robin came home. I was in very high spirits when Robin came home. He asked me about it, and I said that I was praised for my work at the office today. I lied, as I had every intention of hiding my affair from Robin. This went on for almost 2 years. We would make the most of our time whenever we got a chance to make out in the office or at home. Ivan was young and had a lot of stamina. He even had ideas that we would try out. We decided that we would try out every place in the office and at home. It was like a thrill and the sudden rush of adrenaline to try out new things in sex, and it was very exciting. It felt like I was in college again, having multiple affairs with guys and sneaking out with them. Robin noticed that I had been extremely happy, for which I quickly told him that our startup was doing great thanks to my idea, and I was constantly being complimented for it. Robin looked genuinely happy for my success. I felt guilty about it, but I reminded myself that I was only doing this for sex. There was no emotional connection between Ivan and me. Ivan and I were perfect examples of friends with benefits. We would meet, have sex, get dressed, and resume work. There was never anything about sharing stories, experiences, or even trying to get to know each other. It was commitment-free and perfect. This was exactly what I was missing in life, and this reduced my guilt of cheating on Robin. It was our 5th-year marriage anniversary, and Robin had booked us a fancy restaurant. We both enjoyed the night, and after that, he took me to the hotel suite that he had booked for 2 days. He had booked me a spa and a massage. He said that I had been working too hard and deserved to be pampered. I kissed and thanked him for his thoughtfulness. After Robin slept at night, I was restless and couldn't sleep. I wept in the bathroom, feeling overwhelmed with the amount of effort Robin put in our relationship. What was I doing? Cheating on him behind his back, taking advantage of his trust? Just for some sexual satisfaction? All of the events leading up to our anniversary made me feel very shallow. I mean, the man of my dreams was right next to me in every step of my life. He helped me complete my education without even running around part-time jobs to pay for the tuition. Here I was, having sex with my boss just for a few minutes of pleasure. I vowed that I would quit and cut off all ties with Ivan. This could be the only way that I could stop myself from continuing to live like this. We went home after our anniversary weekend together. I told Robin that I would like to quit my job if he had no issues. He said he was listening, and if there was something bothering me, he was always there to lend an ear. I could not bring myself to tell him about the affair. I did not know what to say, so I blurted out that maybe we should think about expanding our family, and that would mean I am always happy and stress-free. Leaving my job will help me with that, and we could try conceiving at various times of the day. To be very frank, I had no clue what I was talking about, but as long as it felt convincing, it would be okay. Robin felt so happy with this news that he carried me in his arms and told me that this was the best gift so far. I could not stop myself from smiling, looking at the happiness all this brought to Robin's face. I thought that maybe this was my only way out of this situation. I went in the next day and handed in my resignation letter. Ivan was shocked. Actually, shocked would be an understatement. He was more than shocked. I lied that I was pregnant and my husband wanted me to quit. He looked scared of my pregnancy. He could not say much in front of Simon. He accepted my resignation and congratulated me. He acted as if he was helping me pack my stuff when he asked me if I was really pregnant and if the baby was his. I hated him for being so selfish in such a situation. I knew I was doing the right thing by cutting all ties with him. I told him not to worry about it. It was not his, and even if it was, then Robin would not know about it. He seemed relieved with this information. I quickly put all my stuff together and bid everyone goodbye and came home. I sat and thought about the way Ivan had reacted. I was happy that I ended things with him before Robin found out about it. There was no way Ivan would take me in if I left Robin and went to him. I was glad I made the right choice. Robin and I tried getting pregnant, and after 1 year, we were blessed with a baby girl. Robin and I were overjoyed at having a baby in our lives. We moved to a different city as Robin got a better offer from another company. We were settling in pretty well and really liked our new neighborhood. Robin said that he wanted to host a party for a few of his colleagues with whom he would be working for the next few years and wanted to bond. I was all up for it and was excited to see Robin make progress at work. Everything was set up for the weekend party. It was time for the guests to come, so I quickly got myself dressed and sent our daughter to her grandparents. When I went down, everyone was already mingling among themselves. I tried to look for Robin and went to the kitchen to find him. I saw him talking to someone near the pool, so I walked up to them when Robin introduced me to his new boss. It was Ivan. I was surprised, and Ivan acted as if he had known me for a very long time. He hugged me and told me that I looked great. I introduced Robin to Ivan as the guy who owned the startup I was working for. Robin, who had always been so clueless, felt so happy that we knew someone in this new city. I prayed for this to be a dream, as I never wanted to ever meet Ivan in my life. As the party progressed, I could see Ivan stealing glances at me. I tried my best to avoid him. When he finally got an opportunity, he walked towards me and asked me if I missed him. I told him that I completely forgot about him and there was nothing to miss. I consciously avoided him and even left early, telling Robin that I was tired. I am writing this as repentance for my sins of cheating on Robin. Life has been great for the past 2 years, but now my past has come back to haunt me. I have changed in the past 2 years by completely devoting myself to Robin. I became the best wife and the best mother and made sure to keep my family above all. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I would have to face my past again, and that too in such a way. I have been having a lot of sleepless nights ever since I saw Ivan and him having that sinister smile on his face. I'm scared that he would tell Robin about our affair, which would shatter the perfect family that I had created for myself. My intention in sharing this deeply personal and painful story is not to elicit sympathy or justification, but rather to encourage reflection, personal accountability, and the pursuit of a healthy and transparent relationship. By acknowledging our mistakes, learning from them, and making amends, we can transform the wreckage of destructive behavior into a foundation of a better future. Update. It has been 3 months since we moved here, and Robin is very happy with his new workplace and colleagues. I am trying to figure out ways to convince Robin to either change this job or move to a different city. I know that it is going to be a task as we just started settling in. I don't know how to convince Robin of it. I am in two minds whether to come clean or not in front of Robin and ask for forgiveness. I was young and immature to do something so wrong. I am scared of losing my daughter in this process. I have a lot to lose right now, and I am not willing to lose the life I have created. This is all my karma coming back to me. There was no way I could put Ivan in a bad light now after all these years, as Robin would know that something was fishy. He would not buy my stories of Ivan being a bad person, as I had not even once mentioned about being harassed at work, or even as much as a sexist comment is being passed at me. I have been in deep thought for the past few days on how to approach this subject with Robin. I know the best thing to do would be to come clean. My daughter is too small right now and needs a mother. I believed this was my perfect chance to come clean to Robin that will ensure that he does not take any drastic steps to separate us, and who knows, Robin might even forgive me and want us to put it behind us. My mind is all messed up right now, unable to think of a win situation to help me out of this mess. I prepared myself to tell Robin the entire truth and face the consequences of my actions. When Robin came home, I gave him a hot cup of coffee and sat across from him, preparing myself to come clean about my affair with Ivan in the past. I braced myself and told Robin that I had something important to discuss. He said he was all ears, and just when I was about to start with my confession, his phone rang. It was Ivan, and my heart skipped a beat. I wanted to be the first one to tell Robin about it, and by the look on his face, I could tell that Ivan was telling him something important. I just prayed and hoped it was not about our affair. After his call, Robin looked at me and said that Ivan was getting married and had invited us to the wedding. I sighed in relief and hugged him. Robin asked me what it was I wanted to talk about, and I just said that it was about our daughter's school. This way I dodged a bullet and hoped that it stays buried forever.